All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children. And God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts: the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus est. Breadwinners, not beggars. Killing welfare to save the American family. Written by Conrad Riker. Available now? Links in description. Breadwinners, not beggars. A field guide for men who still notice reality. My hysteria is not your curriculum. The Wine Thrower's Guide to Civilizational Suicide. Why the Feral Female's High-Intensity Data Request is a recursive shit test for the death of the West. A woman throws wine in a man's face on a first date and publishes an essay celebrating it as righteous liberation. The man's crime, suggesting with infuriating calmness that her behavior seemed dysregulated. She titled her manifesto, "My Healing is Not Your Curriculum." I have a better title, "My Assault is Not Your Empowerment." What you just witnessed was not feminism. It was not resistance. It was a high-volatility comfort test executed in public, documented in real time, and branded as virtue. She admitted the entire mechanism. She needed to know in that exact second if he could handle the heat. This is the shit test confessing itself. The wine throw was a crisis management protocol triggered by a psyche that cannot tolerate stillness, cannot endure the possibility that a man might see through the performance and remain unshaken. He passed. He did not hit her. He did not scream. He sat there, wiped his chinos, and attempted foolishly, perhaps, to name what he was seeing. And for that, he was diagnosed as the problem. She calls it a high-intensity data request. I call it battery. Under any legal code west of the Hodgnall line, throwing liquid in someone's face constitutes assault. But we do not live in a legal regime anymore. We live in an emotional regime where the woman's interior state determines criminality ex post facto. She felt provoked, therefore she was provoked, therefore the provocation justified the violence. This is the logic of the toddler translated into the vocabulary of the therapist's office. The patriarchal manual of domestic compliance, she sneers, would call this immature. No, the Western legal tradition calling back to Hammurabi, to Moses, to Justinian, to Blackstone, would call this assault. The civilization that gave her the wine, the restaurant, the language to complain, the printing press to publish her complaint, and the legal framework protecting her from the consequences of her violence, that civilization calls it assault. She calls it a safety filter. She is auditing his soul. What she cannot admit is that the audit is rigged. The past condition does not exist. Let us trace the etymology she despises. Dis, Greek for bad, difficult, disordered. Regula, Latin for rule, straight edge, standard. To call a woman dysregulated is to observe that her emotional output has departed from the metric, that her internal compass has lost its north. She hears this and reaches for the only tool remaining, redefinition. If the man names her disorder, he is colonizing her affect. If he remains calm, he is retreating into clinical diagnosis. If he defends himself, he is policing her reaction. The game is circular by design. There is no winning move because there is no move that she will recognize as legitimate. This is not a dialogue. This is a one-woman tribunal where she serves as prosecutor, judge, jury, and executioner. and the defendant is any man foolish enough to sit across from her. She has aborted the parts of herself that used to smile when she was dead inside. Read that sentence again. She has aborted parts of herself. The metaphor confesses what the ideology cannot speak directly. She has sterilized her own capacity for nurturance, for patience, for the quiet work of building something that outlasts her own egos. She has no children because the world is a burning trash fire. The fertility rate in the West has collapsed below replacement, 1.5 in her civilization, 1.2 in the nations that most thoroughly implemented her agenda, not because the world is worse than 1348 or 1918 or 1945, but because women like her have convinced themselves that sterility is moral superiority. The trash fire is not the world. The trash fire is her, and she is demanding you climb in. Bunkum article by a feminist PhD. My healing is not your curriculum. Stop trying to wellness your way out of my righteous rage. I went on a date last week with a man who described himself as emotionally available. A red flag, obviously. Usually that phrase is code for I have read exactly 2 books on attachment theory and I plan to use clinical language to police your reaction to my mediocrity. We were discussing boundaries, my boundaries specifically, that I do not organize my life around male comfort, and he suggested, with that infuriatingly calm therapist voice, that perhaps I was dysregulated. I threw my wine in his face. Was it immature? According to the patriarchal manual of domestic compliance, yes, but I prefer to view it as a high-intensity data request. I needed to know in that exact second if he could handle the heat of my existence without retreating into a clinical diagnosis. He could not. He sputtered, wiped his chinos, and lectured me on emotional safety. He failed the test. We are witnessing a terrifying trend in modern dating, the weaponization of therapy language to enforce female subservience. I call it affect colonization. For centuries, the patriarchy controlled women with law and religion. Now, since they can't legally own us, they try to heal us. They try to turn our wild, feral, untamed souls into a tidy spreadsheet of triggers and coping mechanisms. When a woman screams, cries, or demands to know why she should settle for a life of quiet desperation, she isn't ill. She is responding to a crisis. She is initiating a crisis management protocol to see if the man in front of her has a spine, or if he's just a bundle of self-soothing affirmations wrapped in Lululemon. Take running. I see them in the park every morning. The men running, not away from tigers, but away from their shadows. They track their miles, their heart rates, their VO2 max. It is a frantic, sweaty attempt to outrun the void. When a man suggests we go for a run to clear our heads, he is asking me to join him in his flight. He is terrified of stillness because stillness is where the truth lives. He wants a partner who is similarly sedated by endorphins, too exhausted to ask the hard questions. Why are we running? Who are we running from? Why do I feel like I'm suffocating in this healthy relationship? Then there is the epidemic of cheese guides. I have dated men who keep leather-bound journals dedicated to the pH levels of artisanal brie. They treat their palates like a PhD dissertation. On the surface, it's cultured. Beneath the surface, it is the bureaucratization of pleasure. It is a desperate attempt to impose order on the chaotic, rotten, beautiful process of decay. It is normative scholarship over descriptive inquiry. They want to categorize the taste rather than experience the sensation. They want to apply a rating system to joy. When I refuse to rank my cheese preferences, when I simply want to devour the wheel with my bare hands, they look at me with pity. She's so unrefined. She lacks discipline. No, I possess the discipline of the wolf. I do not need a map to know how to eat. And finally, the most insidious tool of the oppressor, music therapy. When a man suggests we use sound to heal, what he means is he wants you to hum quietly until you stop asking him to take accountability for his emotional negligence. It is the ultimate co-optation of the primal scream. The patriarchy has taken the sound of female rage and put it in a box labeled therapeutic. They tell us to use our words. Why? So they can analyze them, so they can tell us we are using the wrong words. So they can diagnose us with borderline traits when we refuse to calm down. I am not borderline. I am on the front line. My intensity is not a pathology to be managed. It is a safety filter. I am aggressively auditing your soul to see if you can hold space for a woman who has aborted the parts of herself that used to smile when she was dead inside. I have no children because the world is a burning trash fire and I refuse to birth a new host for the capitalist machine. My maternal instinct hasn't vanished. It has gone feral. I mother myself now. And I am a strict mother. I do not coddle myself with self-care scams. I demand justice. So, when you see a woman who seems impossible to please, who questions your every motive, who looks at your calm, stable life and sees a prison, do not suggest therapy. Do not offer her a cheese plate. Do not tell her to go for a run. She is testing you. She is projecting her anima onto you, demanding you become the hero who can withstand the storm. But you won't. You'll just label her crazy and find a woman who is low maintenance. Good luck with that. She's the one who will leave you on your deathbed with a smile. The wine thrower's dialectic, anatomy of a high volatility stress test. A Roman magistrate from the late Republic would recognize the wine thrower immediately. She is the unrestrained ID demanding to be governed, the chaos craving order, the child screaming for the father she simultaneously resents and requires. When our protagonist tossed her Malbec into the face of a man whose only crime was possessing vocabulary beyond the 10th grade reading level, she accidentally committed an act of truth that would make Diogenes weep with recognition. She called it a high-intensity data request. I call it the most honest admission in modern feminist literature. Every shit test is precisely this, a request for data. The female psyche, oscillating perpetually somewhere on the borderline personality disorder spectrum, intensifies this data request into what she accurately terms a crisis management protocol. She needed to know if her date could hold frame under fire. His calmness was the answer. He passed. She rejected the data because it contradicted her narrative of male inadequacy. The syllogism writes itself. She seeks a man who can withstand her intensity. She destroys men who fail to withstand her intensity. She destroys men who do withstand her intensity by retroactively redefining the parameters of the test. This is not a courtship ritual. This is a pathology wearing lipstick. The therapeutic industrial complex has given modern women a vocabulary of conquest, and dice-regulated has become their nuclear option. Etymologically, we trace this linguistic weapon from the Greek dis, bad, difficult, against, coupled with the Latin regula, rule, straight edge, standard. A dysregulated person is one who cannot be ruled, who rejects the straight edge, who fights against the standard. Our wine thrower senses accurately that male application of regulatory frameworks to her emotional eruptions threatens her power. She rebrands this accurate diagnosis as patriarchal control when it is simply epistemic hygiene. The same way a physician diagnoses infection, not to oppress the patient, but to identify the pathology requiring treatment. The Roman father of antiquity understood that auctoritas, moral authority, required the steady application of regula to domestic chaos. The modern woman calls this oppression. The ancient called it civilization. Her rage at running, at cheese categorization, at therapeutic music reveals something far more significant than personal preference. She hates these activities because they represent the imposition of rational order upon chaotic nature, Aristotle's morph stamping itself upon Hyle, form conquering matter, the Apollonian principle restraining the Dionysian. When a man runs, he imposes upon his body a discipline that serves a telos, a purpose, an end goal. When he categorizes cheese, he engages in the distinctively Western practice of taxonomic inquiry, the same intellectual tradition that gave us Linnean classification and the scientific method. When he uses music therapeutically, he acknowledges that the human soul requires harmonic order to flourish. Plato wrote in the Republic that musical modes shape the character of citizens. Our wine thrower rejects all of this. She prefers the discipline of the wolf, which is to say, no discipline at all, merely the impulse of the moment dressed in romantic mythology. The wolf does not build cathedrals. The wolf does not compose symphonies. The wolf does not establish universities or draft constitutions or negotiate trade agreements. The wolf eats, copulates, and dies. This is her ideal. Regression to pre-civilizational animality, dignified with false romanticism, I have aborted the parts of myself that used to smile when she was dead inside. Read that sentence again. Let its horrors settle into your bones. She has not merely chosen ideological commitment over reproductive continuity. She has framed this self-mutilation as a sacred right. The strict mother she now performs toward herself is a grotesque parody of maternal authority, untethered from life-giving purpose. She mothers herself the way a cancer mothers itself, through consumption, through growth without direction, through the eventual death of the host organism. The feminist project has achieved its terminal velocity, women proudly declaring their barrenness as moral superiority, while the West faces demographic collapse, not through external conquest, but through voluntary sterilization. Replacement fertility rate is 2.1 children per woman. American women currently average 1.64 and falling. The civilization that produced Aquinas and Newton and Beethoven is dying because its women have been convinced that reproduction is complicity with capitalism and that barrenness is revolutionary virtue. The projection mechanisms in her essay achieve a level of psychological audacity that would make Joseph Goebbels nod in professional appreciation. She accuses men of effect colonization, of weaponizing therapeutic language to enforce female subservience. While feminism has spent 6 decades colonizing every institution of Western society with their emotional epistemology, they captured the universities. Women now earn 57% of bachelor's degrees and dominate humanities departments where this exact ideology is manufactured. They captured the law. Family courts award primary custody to mothers in 82.6% of cases, despite fathers demonstrating equal parenting capability. They captured corporate HR. DEI initiatives have transformed workplaces into re-education camps, where the slightest deviation from feminist orthodoxy terminates careers. They captured medicine. The therapeutic industrial complex now pathologizes normal male behavior, while normalizing female dysfunction. And she has the audacity to claim that men using therapy language represents colonization of female emotional territory. The parasite has convinced itself it is the host. Her propaganda operates through a closed informational system impervious to external correction. She claims intensity is not pathology, semantic inflation designed to rebrand dysfunction as virtue. She asserts moral duty to demand justice, duty manipulation that positions her emotional terrorism as ethical obligation. She positions herself as frontline warrior status claiming through militaristic metaphor, while her actual combat experience involves throwing wine at men who disappoint her. She preemptively immunizes against counter-argument by labeling diagnosis as weaponization, epistemic gating that renders her position unfalsifiable. If you agree with her, you confirm her thesis. If you disagree with her, you confirm her thesis by demonstrating your inability to handle her intensity. This is not rational discourse. This is religious fanaticism dressed in therapeutic vocabulary, complete with unfalsifiable doctrines and excommunication protocols for heretics. The man on that date committed no sin beyond attempting rational dialogue with an irrational creature. He observed her dysregulation, he named it. He maintained his frame. She destroyed his chinos and called it empowerment. What she wanted, what the female psyche always wants in these moments of manufactured crisis, was a man who would grab her by the throat, metaphorically or perhaps literally, and impose the order she cannot impose upon herself. She wanted the Roman father. She wanted the frontiersman who would have tossed her over his knee. She wanted the patriarch of her fevered nightmares, the strongman who rules the chaos of her emotions with authority she can finally respect. And when this man failed to become that patriarch, when he responded with calm rationality and therapeutic vocabulary, she destroyed him for failing the tests she had rigged for his failure. The shit test is always rigged. The data request is never satisfied. The crisis management protocol has no resolution because the crisis is not external. It is the unvidable void where her soul should be. This confession of ideological self-mutilation marks the logical endpoint of a civilization that systematically dismantled every structure designed to protect women from their own impulses while stripping men of every defense against those same impulses. She throws wine because nowhere in the wreckage of Western patriarchy does there remain a wall capable of saying no and meaning it. The tantrum is not rebellion, but the desperate flailing of an orphaned creature who was told that containment was oppression rather than the architecture of her own sanity. The androcentric remedy, masculine frame as civilizational foundation. A Roman father could kill his daughter's suitor for less than what this woman did on her date. Under the patria potestas of genuine civilization, throwing wine in a man's face constituted assault, and assault demanded satisfaction. Now, the state calls it emotional expression and arrests the man who wipes his chinos too aggressively. The principle of subsidiarity, that governance belongs at the most local competent level, dictates that the family unit requires a final authority, an executive branch capable of saying no and meaning it. When you remove that authority, you don't get equality. You get what Schopenhauer predicted, women testing boundaries endlessly because no wall exists to stop them. This woman threw wine because she needed to know if a man remained behind the face she was assaulting. She found a therapist instead. The tragedy isn't her rage. It's that nowhere in her life exists a father, husband, or institution capable of telling her that rage has consequences. She attacks emotional availability as a red flag, and her instincts work better than her ideology. The therapeutic man she despises accepts her frame entirely. He merely wants to manage her chaos within her own epistemological system. He speaks her language, validates her feelings, asks, "How does that make you feel?" while she burns his world down. He is the feminist ideal made flesh, and she cannot stand him. What she wants, the hero who withstands the storm, requires precisely the patriarchal frame she claims to oppose. The red-pilled man does not manage emotions, he maintains reality. When she screams, he does not ask about her childhood. He states the boundary and enforces it. Her unconscious knows this. The wine-throwing intensified precisely because she sensed no frame existed to push against. She wasn't testing his therapy skills, she was begging him to stop her. 50 years of social engineering produced this creature, and she thinks she's the revolution. Before no-fault divorce, before the Duluth model, before believe all women replaced due process, a woman who threw drinks on dates found herself unmarried and unemployed. Society enforced standards because society understood that unrestrained female behavior destroys families, and destroyed families destroy civilizations. Now, family courts award mothers custody in 82% of contested cases. Fathers who report domestic violence are more likely to lose visitation than mothers who commit it. The state has become the enforcer of her tantrums, and she calls this liberation. Every constraint on male response has multiplied, while every constraint on female provocation has vanished. She sneers at men seeking low-maintenance partners as if stability were oppression. The trap stands revealed: submit to chaos or be accused of seeking subservience. Your refusal to accept mistreatment is not an act of selfishness, it serves the common good. By maintaining high standards and rejecting chaotic behavior, such as that displayed by narcissists, you fulfill a corrective function that fathers and husbands once universally provided. Feminism did not free women from oppression, it freed them from accountability. The emotional instability she exhibits during dates exists because no man in her life was allowed to say stop. Her father, if present, was legally powerless against her mother's disorder. Her teachers, employers, and partners all faced the same imbalance. When you enforce limits, you do more than defend yourself. You provide a necessary correction that society conspired to withhold. Behavior has repercussions. Hysterical outbursts drive people away. Unjustified anger meets exile. Every man who walks away from her drama teaches her that civilization demands self-control, and she will despise him for the lesson she sorely requires. Listen to her mockery of low-maintenance women to hear the noble scorning the commoner. The grounded woman who governs herself, saving her turmoil for real emergencies, who constructs rather than demolishes. She stands as the spine of society. The demanding egotist acts as a premium commodity viable only when excess men fund her instability. No culture can grow using her pattern. Rome collapsed when its females traded humility for showmanship. We sped up the decline by financing the display openly. She ridicules men wanting tranquil mates because harmony reveals her as the troublemaker she truly is. The silent woman's steadiness serves as an indictment against her turmoil. forcing her to portray obedience where none is present. A female requiring no oversight can rear offspring requiring little discipline. A female who generates emergencies cannot raise children at all. She terminates them, in reality and metaphorically, labeling it revolutionary action. They called it benevolent sexism, when fathers protected daughters from their own worst impulses, when husbands provided structure for wives who lacked it, when society recognized female emotional volatility as a feature requiring guardrails rather than a bug requiring celebration. This writer's barrenness, her rage, her admission that she aborted the parts of herself that used to smile. This is what liberation produces when liberation means abandoning women to their impulses. The patriarchy she hates functioned as a collective father, saying no when individual women couldn't say it to themselves. Remove the guardrails and women don't run free, they run off cliffs. She proves this in every paragraph. Untreated, unguided, unrestricted, she has become a creature no man wants and no society needs. Her article is confession disguised as indictment. She admits she tests men, that her rage is performance, that she has destroyed her maternal capacity, that she seeks a hero to withstand what she inflicts. She tells you exactly what she is and blames you for seeing it. The front line she claims to occupy exists only in her mind. She fights no war, defends no one, produces nothing but complaint. Her safety filter filters out precisely the men who might save her, those with standards, boundaries, and the self-respect to enforce both. She reserves her deepest contempt for the man who walked away, who called her crazy and found someone sane. He passed her test by failing it. He refused to subsidize her dysfunction, and she will never forgive him. Good. His children will thank him. Schopenhauer observed that women remain children throughout their lives, not as insult, but as phenomenological description. They exist in perpetual present, governed by feeling rather than reason, requiring external structure to function as adults. Watch this woman perform her tantrum and see the philosopher's insight confirmed. Her crisis management protocol is toddler logic. If I scream loud enough, someone strong will appear. Her high-intensity data request translates to, I need to know if you're daddy enough to stop me. The tragedy? Her ideology prevents her from recognizing what she needs, so she demands what destroys her while attacking what would save her. She is not evil, she is abandoned, and her abandonment has metastasized into hatred of the cure. The trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric functions as masculine armor against precisely this manipulation. Grammar defines terms accurately. Dysregulated is not patriarchal coding, but clinical description of someone who cannot regulate emotions. Logic identifies fallacies. Her entire piece commits the tu quoque, assuming male attempts at emotional management prove patriarchal conspiracy rather than reasonable response to her chaos. Rhetoric persuades effectively, or would, if her arguments held water. She attacks clinical language because precise language exposes her. She hates therapy speak, not because it's wrong, but because it's accurate. When you define terms correctly, when you follow arguments to conclusions, when you refuse her framing at the level of word and sentence, her entire ideology collapses into what it is: a toddler's tantrum dressed in academic language, demanding the father she never had while insisting she needs no man at all. She ends with a curse: the low-maintenance woman will leave you on your deathbed with a smile. Perhaps, but the high-maintenance woman leaves you every day, abandons you for wine-throwing and therapy bashing and articles about her healing that heal nothing. The low-maintenance woman built every civilization that ever existed. The high-maintenance woman burns them. Choose accordingly. You have been conned. The wine-thrower is not a revolutionary. She is a toddler with a saurus. Her high-intensity data request is modern gloss on an ancient biological script, a stress test for male competence. The tragedy is that she destroys what she seeks. She demands a Hercules, but reacts to his strength by diagnosing him as controlling. She wants a man who holds frame, then files a police report when he doesn't flinch at her tantrums. This is the double-bind gynocentrism has wrought, and you, the reader, you feel the click of the lock falling open in your mind. You recognize the pattern now. The psychiatric racket, the HR department, the divorce court, all of them operate on the same principle. They privatize female recklessness and socialize male obligation. It is a vast, interconnected machine of shit desks, backed by state violence. But here is the liberating truth. Once you see the mechanism, you are no longer subject to it. You stop trying to heal the wine throwers of the world. You stop apologizing for your competence, your calm, your capacity to organize life according to reason rather than impulse. You recognize that the front line she claims to occupy is actually the perimeter of her own delusion. And you, armed with the syllogism, grounded in natural law, walking in the footsteps of your ancestors, simply walk away. You go find a woman who has not aborted her soul, who understands that civilization is not a prison, but the garden we cultivate together. You become the ancestor your descendants will thank. The spell is broken. The data is in. You passed the test she didn't know she was giving. Now go forth and plant your standard. And now the sponsored book introduction, Breadwinners, not Beggars, Killing Welfare to Save the American Family. You're tired. I get it. You've been called names, bigot, sexist, backwards, for daring to believe men should work hard, protect their families, and take pride in their country. You've watched sons mocked for wanting to be strong, fathers sidelined by bureaucrats, and neighborhoods gutted by handouts that reward laziness over grit. I wrote this book because I lived it. My father worked 60-hour weeks in a Pennsylvania steel mill. He didn't whine about toxic masculinity. He fed his kids. He fixed the roof. He didn't need a government check or a lecture from some gender studies dropout to know his worth. This isn't theory. I've seen welfare lines stretch for blocks in cities where factories once stood. Watched boys raised without fathers turn to drugs, gangs, or worse. Watched schools teach kids to hate their own history while praising cultures that stone women for showing an ankle. You think that's progress? It's collapse. And it's deliberate. This book is for men who've had enough. Men who want the truth about how welfare chains generations to poverty, how feminists vilify dads for wanting to lead, and how toxic masculinity is a lie spun to make you apologize for being a man. If you're content blaming patriarchy for your failures, or think men can unlearn their instincts to compete and conquer, stop reading now. Go knit a sweater, write poetry. This isn't for you. But if you're ready to fight, to rebuild families, reject handouts, and spit in the eye of every smug academic who calls you a dinosaur, this book is your weapon. I'll show you how welfare created a generation of fatherless boys, why real men don't beg for safe spaces, and how to raise sons who will work hard, respect their country, and laugh at the weaklings who call strength oppression. America wasn't built by men who cried about microaggressions. It was built by men who swung hammers, raised barns, and understood that dignity comes from sweat, not food stamps. If that offends you, good. Offense means the truth's hitting home. Now decide, keep coddling the losers who'd rather whine than win, or stand up, shut the noise out, and get back to work. Your country's waiting. Breadwinners, not Beggars, Killing Welfare to Save the American Family, written by Conrad Riker. Buy now, links in description.